army of 150,000 men, women, and children invaded an American city. Whites, Negroes, Indians, Creoles, Cajuns. They came from every corner of the land, their roots in every curve of the globe. Moscow, Indiana, Warsaw, North Dakota, Hamburg, California, Milan, Missouri, Baghdad, Kentucky. Some came out of patriotism, some out of grim necessity, some for a richer life. All came to do a war job. This could be any one of 100 great American war centers. It happens to be Mobile, Alabama. But the story is the same in every war town in America.
The chronic unemployment that had eaten at Mobile and every other American town for more than a decade during the Depression was over. Idle factories were back in business. Mass production was an American invention, but now it reached levels its inventors could never have imagined. Nearly all manufacturing was converted to the war effort. In 1941, more than 3 million cars had been manufactured in the United States. Only 139 more were made during the entire war. Instead, Chrysler made fuselages. General Motors made airplane engines, guns, trucks, and tanks. And at its vast Willow Run plant in Ypsilanti, Michigan, 67 acres of assembly lines under a single roof that one observer called the Grand Canyon of the mechanized world. The Ford Motor Company performed something like a miracle, 24 hours a day. The average Ford car had some 15,000 parts. The B-24 Liberator long-range bomber had 1,550,000 parts. One came off the line at Willow Run every 63 minutes. If the American military wasn't yet quite equal to the Germans or the Japanese, American workers would soon be able to build ships and planes faster than the enemy could sink them or shoot them down. By the end of the war, more than one-half of all the industrial production in the world would take place in the United States. Mobile was among the fastest growing of all American war towns. Even before the war began, powerful Democratic Congressman Frank Boykin landed his city a $26 million defense contract that transformed the municipal airport into Brookley Field, a major Army Air Force supply depot and bomber modification center that provided 17,000 civilian jobs. In 1940, Gulf Shipbuilding had had 240 employees. By 1943, it had 11,600. In the same period, Alabama Dry Dock went from 1,000 workers to almost 30,000. They included Hank Williams, the future country music star, and the parents of future home run hitter Hank Aaron.
It was 7 days a week. And during the war, when it was so strong, it was 12-hour days, 5 days a week, 10 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday. You felt like you had a week off. There was such an influx of people that you got on each other's nerves. and there wasn't enough watering holes to entertain everybody. So they get out and have fights and drink and all that kind of stuff.
African Americans streamed into Mobile from all over the South in search of defense work and a fresh start. They found both. But they also found the same kind of discrimination they had known at home.
Mobile was a pretty fair-minded city. And before this time, whites and blacks got along pretty good as long as you had the status quo. But when blacks began to get homes, to buy homes and to ride in big cars, it turned some people off. The policeman would stop you and give you a ticket. My cousin got a ticket for driving 16 miles an hour in a 15-mile zone.
150,000 people, 10 full military divisions, the civilian equivalent of Rommel's entire African army, bivouacked without warning in the narrow confines of one peaceful southern city. Less than 3 years ago, you might have walked blocks in Mobile without encountering a person. Today, you stop to scratch your head and a line forms behind you. No wonder there's such a chaos and congestion of traffic.
Mobile became so crowded in 6 months that people were living in vacant lots. They put up tents in vacant lots. People went into the boarding houses, and one room would hold as many as 4 men.
Every available room was canvassed, utilized.
They would sleep for so many hours, get up and leave the bed, go to work, and another man would take the bed.
This was a neighborhood grocery store. These girls, welders, checkers, and machinists.
Emma Bell Petcher was from the tiny town of Millry, Alabama. Most of her girlfriends had taken secretarial jobs once they'd gotten out of high school. But Emma Bell, like her father, loved to take things apart.
I always fixed my own appliances at home growing up. The washing machine got a nail in the pump. I took the pump apart and took the nail out of the housing of the pump. And, you know, I didn't have the patience to call in a repairman who would be 3 days later, and he wouldn't tell you morning or evening. So I'd empty the washing machine, turn it upside down, take the screwdrivers, and because I knew how to do all this stuff. So I packed my little cardboard suitcase and got on the bus and went to Mobile. So they put me in a school to learn airplane accessories. That was starters, generators, alternators, and some other thing. So we did those parts, just those little instruments over and over and over and over until graduation. We had to almost put them together blindfold.
Petcher breezed through all her tests and got a job working on airplanes. By 1943, 6 million women had entered the workforce, and nearly half of them were working in defense plants. Life magazine paid tribute to the mythical Rosie the Riveter as neither drudge nor slave, but the heroine of a new order. In Mobile, 2,500 women worked at Alabama Dry Dock, 1,200 at Gulf Shipbuilding, and 750 at Brooklyn Field, where Emma Bell Petcher worked her way up to inspector, responsible for quality control.
You would be assigned X number of planes to be responsible for. I was to inspect the torque and the screws in the wings and go into the gas tanks and crawl up in the wings with flashlights. Well, I was so conscientious, I just didn't make the mistakes.
I worked at the government nursery school, which was downtown in Christchurch Rectory. And we had the children of the women that worked in the shipyards. Rosie the Riveter would come bring her child in all of her headgear and her togs that she did her riveting in, and drop her precious little baby off and go down and work all day and come back at 5 o'clock and pick the child up.
So many children flooded into Mobile that its overrun schools were pronounced the worst in the nation by the U.S. Office of Education. Some native citizens of Mobile were openly scornful of the newcomers. A school teacher called them the lowest type of poor whites, these workers flocking in from the backwoods. They prefer to live in shacks and go barefoot. They let their kids run wild on the streets. I only hope we can get rid of them after the war.
No one did it verbally or to you, but the air of the old aristocratic Mobile people were really, had to put up with a lot.
Well, in Mobile, the people that came here to work in the shipyards came from the small towns. So we considered them rednecks. And they really weren't. They were very fine Americans, but they were more of our farming type of Southerner. But they adjusted quickly.
But, everybody was thrown into it together, whether they liked it or not. We were all together.
And the story of Mobile is the story of every American war town.